Welcome to Revolution Against Evolution. I'm your host, Doug Sharp.
Your co-host, Rich Gear, here as well, and we have a long-lost guest. We haven't had you on for quite a while, Dan.
Yes.
Good to see you. Back from,
back.
Yeah, how long have you been back in the country now?
Just a few days.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, pretty recently. He's been into Sudan. Well, you can tell us all about it.
South Sudan.
South Sudan. Mm-hmm. Doing, well, why don't you tell us about it? It's just kind of neat stuff.
Well, we're going to give a little bit of a title to the show
I
first.
forgot. Might as well give a title.
And we're going to talk about whether man is a product of his environment. And Dan is going to fill us in a little bit about why that's significant in his line of work as a missionary to South Sudan. And we appreciate him being as a part of us,
right.
And then getting a call to the mission field and doing a tremendous work in a developing country which has been torn by war and famine and a lot of problems for many years. So
kudos, man. You're doing some tough times, to go over there like that, to do that. It's a lot of courage, I think, but anyway.
Thanks. Yeah, I think as we contemplate the consequences of different worldviews, and different ways of looking at things, we find that beliefs or worldviews or ideas have consequences, and so they play out in terms of how people act on those beliefs. And so
the trick is, see, we know that I've heard that quite a bit, but he's going to give us some things, what kind of worldviews and what kind of consequences, specifics as far as what that really means. We know that ideas have consequences. Some ideas are actually, if you want to say, good consequences, and a lot of them bad ones. We usually use that to mean, okay, ideas have consequences, mean bad things that happen. In this case, you have some specifics
right.
of certain ideas and worldview things that are causing problems. And even here in the States, you're saying.
And
right?
people who are, have a good heart and want to change the world
mm-hmm.
and to have a cause of making the world a better place, and yet if they come from a misguided worldview, it does then hinder the process, and it can cause more harm than good. So tell us about what you're experiencing in South Sudan.
Well, as I travel, I do agricultural development in the context of being a missionary because of my agricultural background. And what I'm finding as I travel around the country doing trainings is that a lot of the development is being stymied by a worldview that has some dysfunction to it. And then also, when you add on top some factors that relate to the way that development is being encouraged by the NGO or the non-government organizations that are there. There is approaches that are happening that are not effective and actually creating a dependency and entitlement. And I think the root cause sometimes is that the NGO world, in particular, tends to think that if you change a person's environment, or if you give them the things that they need for flourishing, that they'll automatically flourish. Or if you give them education, they'll automatically flourish. But if you don't change the worldview or the cultural that lies within the culture that hold them back, then dependency and entitlement is very easy to come in and undermine the efforts of people who are coming in to help.
Is that another way of saying the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of that. We learned that back. I mean, in this country, we learned that over the years. Talk about the culture of dependency. We were fighting that already, the welfare state and whatnot. But even when during the Civil War, it was the greatest thing, end slavery, right? Mm-hmm. But the people who come over from Africa, the slaves, the blacks, a lot of them were not educated, so they did not know how to become a productive member. They ended up going back and being servants and they were kept down for another 100 years almost because their education background was very bad. You had the Frederick Douglasses, the Booker T. Washes, but those were by and large fairly unusual for a long period of time, and that's just here. So I can imagine what it's like if we go to like Sudan, and because I've read about things. There are many. For instance, I don't know how this is in Sudan, but I know in other parts of Africa, they sort of model their tribal or their family unit based. I always think almost like the lions and the pride of lions. The base of the male, once he gets to be a male, he doesn't do anything. The wife and the kids do all the work, and he doesn't eat. I'm the king of the roost. I'm the lion. So their culture is the man doesn't do anything. Not very opposite of what it is here. And so if you just give them things, it's just going to create more of that. It would seem to create more of that dependency, or that say, well, I'm entitled because I'm the king of the roost. I'm the male of the house now. It's it's quite a different worldview. And I'm just using that as an example of things I've read and talked to missionaries about, and to run into the idea that the man should actually if not take charge, at least be in the vanguard of planting the crops and working in the fields or raising the cattle or whatever it is that they want to do to make themselves a better life. And a big part of that, you say you're obviously a missionary, we come from our Christian worldview, is the idea is you don't work, you don't eat. That's pretty much a biblical mandate, and we're disobeying it here in this country, let alone over there. But their culture is not by and large based on Christian worldviews. They've got, the South Sudan broke up because of the Christian-Muslim, schism. But even with that, there's still a lot of things you pointed out over the years. We talked that may be Christian, but not the way we understand it. So tell us a little bit about some of it, because I want to get into some of those specifics, So.
Well, one of the things that is happening is that one of the preservative things in the culture that has maybe worked to their advantage in the past is there's a support network that is in place for people for when they encounter hard times. And so what you can do in most African cultures is you can go and ask someone who has more than you, and they're obligated to help you.
Okay.
And so that has a real good side to it, because it obligates people to help each other. But in the context of NGOs and people coming in and doing indiscriminate distributions, there's already no shame in asking someone for something. And to feel entitled, there's a sense of entitlement that's already there in the culture. So if you come into a culture and you start giving things away, then the expectation is you're going to continue to give and continue to give because you have more. And the West is seen as an unlimited supply of goods coming, and they deserve them because they're poor, and the NGOs, the non-government organizations, they're seen as holding too much back for themselves and exploiting the opportunities to use this money.
By who? Who is it? By the people themselves, or who thinks that?
No, the people themselves see the NGOs because of the lavish lifestyle that sometimes they live in a higher standard. They think that they're keeping too much back for themselves, and it's an easy justification for trying to.
Yeah, that's what I was getting. Who is thinking this? So some people who are getting the large-S think they're not getting enough, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay, all right.
That's right. They're not getting their fair share.
Okay.
In fact, everywhere I go, I see people complaining that so-and-so community over there gets an unfair share of the services that are being offered by the NGOs. So-and-so over there is getting all the jobs that are offered by the NGOs. We didn't get our fair share of the distributions because they got a lot more than we did. And you hear this complaining. The youth, they listen to that and they think, oh, well, there's things we can do to make this right. Maybe we can justify looting, or we can justify corruption. A lot of things get justified on that basis. And there's just a lot of underlying problems. And so you can see that envy or coveting or jealousy, it's fermenting the whole conflict scenario within the country. And so I think that we need to start thinking about ways that we can turn this around and start, instead of seeing things as first it's relief or giving things away and meeting the immediate need, and then we have resilience or rehab where we're giving them the tools of production and seed and fertilizer and things like that, and then we have development where they're doing it, where we're helping them do it on their own. People are getting stuck over here in this resilience rehab area because of the approach that's used. We need to find ways of doing development in the midst of a relief setting, and I think the church can really play a large role in helping strengthen and fortify the business sector, the private sector, and the linkages to the people that need jobs, that are late adopters or not entrepreneurs, and link them up with opportunities to work instead of just going out there and giving things away and increasing the entitlement dependency problems.
It's like the old adage, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man how to fish and you teach him how to eat for a lifetime.
Exactly.
And what, I've been experiencing a little bit of this myself. It seems like 2 or 3 times a week I'll get somebody from a foreign country friend me on Facebook. And then the next thing I know, they're on Messenger. Hello, how are you? How would you like to support my Sunday school over here in Pakistan? And then if you start that down the line, they get a little bit angry. Well, our children are very upset because they're starving over here. Well, it's a scam. And so, but it's sort of like a reflection of that entitlement mentality. You rich Americans, you have all these resources, and we're entitled to them because we don't have it. But it's something that the blessing has to come from the abundance of the heart. It's abundance of your effort to sustain yourself, and if you're not contributing to your economy, it just isn't going to be blessed. You send over relief, and it's only temporary. It's not going to help at all. Long term. It's just going to meet an immediate need. And
how do you do that? You got cultural. You said Pakistan. You're dealing with Africa. But it seems like it's worldwide. It's probably endemic to the human condition. If you can get something for nothing without working for it, you'll do that. That's part of who we are. I understand that. But they think we have these unending resources because it came about because of the Protestant work ethic, quite frankly. Okay, you work and you work hard and you work your lifetime. We're not but where that's been abandoned or never practiced, you don't have that mentality. I got to tell you, like for instance, a lot of the Islamic cultures, I am painting with broad brush in some respects, but it's like they made a lot of their wealth by basically conquering or enslaving. That's how they got it, and they didn't. All the oil wells they got was the West produced them. As far as I know, I don't think they produced any of them. I could be wrong, and you can castigate me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe they've developed anything on their own, and that's the real problem with that culture. But Africa has the same kind of a mindset. They don't, and part of it, something I remember growing up years ago, temperate climates tend to be a little bit more slothful because you go pick a banana off a tree. You don't have to
Tropical climate.
Tropical climate. Yeah, you don't have to learn how to work hard because it's too easy. Yeah, too easy. We had to build houses to protect us in the winter and the summer. Things are not always there. So
Short growing season.
So you have to figure out how to do those things. But that is one part of it. I think the other part of it is the Christian basis, which talks about you produce and help others, and you're going to help yourself along the way. It's that who's that guy that dug the invisible hand, so to speak? Remember that, the economist? But that's sort of a Christian idea. There's
Adam Smith.
Adam Smith, yeah. And it's sort of the idea when you do things to benefit yourself, you're gonna benefit other people as well. That's the best way to benefit yourself, to benefit others.
Oh, you're driving this Corvette. Well, that Corvette was produced by workers in Bowling Green, in Kentucky, and those workers benefited from you buying that Corvette, and they are able to provide for their families because you bought that Corvette. And that's a sort of type of thing, and it's raising the standard of living of everybody. The water as it rises, it floats all the boats.
But I'm saying that Africa and Russia, these all have tremendous resources, but they're not utilized.
That's right.
That's what I'm getting at. There's a behind all the resources. It's like, why is it not being developed? I look at this over and over again in different countries. Some countries just don't have as much, I realize. But some countries, they do a lot with very little. I mean, we have a lot of resources, but there's also this Christian worldview that says you need to work.
One of the best ways to look at this, I think, is that actually there's no shortage of resources really hardly anywhere in the world. What you really find is a shortage of wise or efficient stewards of the existing resources. That's what the shortage is. And so we want to build that capacity of people to better steward their resources. And we also want to do it in a way of compassion. We need to be intentional about finding ways in our margin where we may have some prosperity, but there's some areas of marginal returns, like in the Old Testament system. The farmer was not to go out and do the final harvest, because, and in many cases, and I'm a farmer myself, I know that when you go out and do the last harvest, sometimes you don't even break even. Sometimes you lose money by the month you pay your workers.
Interesting.
So that,
I didn't know that.
So if we bring our gleaning concepts from the Old Testament and we bring them to in our modern context, we want to be looking for those things that are in our areas of low margin. Like say, if someone can come, be allowed, disabled or something, and allowed to do something in our home, then we can take a little bit, make a little bit more money with that extra time someplace else, or do a better job of marketing, or add a little bit, and then we're blessing other people. The idea is to be a blessing. Find ways to increase the blessing, and use some of the beautiful idea systems that were given to us by God in the Old Testament, the deacon system, in the New Testament, where they were not supposed to detract from the Great Commission by devoting so much time and effort to all the needs, but they were to split up and bring and assign people to be cared for by the deacons, and then they had qualifications for those who could be helped, and that system set up wouldn't drain the general funds of the church, because people were being asked also to contribute something too.
Well, there's a kind of a crude expression. I'm not going to translate it verbatim, but it's not the time to drain the swamp when you're up your butt in alligators. Okay, the problem is, if you don't get out of the swamp and you just keep swimming around in the swamp, you're always going to get chewed up by alligators. And these people live in crisis mode all the time, and people are trying to create crisis mode, all the time. So yes, I think the compassion of the Christian, and I think the heart of many people, they want to give to these people, because we do out of the abundance, we have a lot, we want to share and have it, but the law of unintended consequences is causing problems,
right?
Because the culture of dependency gets worse. We're seeing it here. We have the same thing here. It's happened, and luckily we still have at least the vestiges of the Christian worldview, and there's still that kind of work. So there's a hand in hand where you help people out in the emergencies, and you said the qualifications, the widows and the orphans, you're supposed to help them.
Yeah.
That's the biblical worldview. I think that's, to me, a real big part of it. You talk about the ministries five of them were devoted to spiritual needs. Only one, the deacon, was involved in the physical needs.
Right.
And even the physical, the deacons, like Stephen, was quite a preacher himself.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's right, yeah.
the ones who took care of the groceries and the feeding the widows, and all, there's one ministry designated for that, the deacon. And all the other ones were spiritual needs.
I think we can also draw upon our experiences of what really worked in the past. And what we're forgetting is that the American history has a rich history of examples of how poverty was being overcome in whole sectors of cities were being turned around, and those are oftentimes occurring during times of revival. But there are also huge volunteer networks, and a lot of these charities that we exist today, Salvation Army and stuff, they all have their roots in that 1800 time period when thousands and thousands of Christians were going out and volunteering their time. And one of the things I read is that one person, one volunteer, could reasonably only handle helping two families. So it takes a huge number of people working with people to help mentor them and get them through. And the first thing they did was they categorized people on the basis of do these people have broken relationships out there that could help them, instead of just handing them things and saying they always try to reconnect them to potential support networks for relatives, neighbors, church, community, anybody that might be helping them, and then they try to make those connections first. And also they would say there's no help outside the workhouse, and so they were all expected to do some work in exchange for a bed or exchange for food.
Yeah, the Salvation Army and the Rescue Mission does. You were talking something earlier. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of the point, but about even the evangelical or the church itself is sort of getting topsy-turvy. They're beginning to make priorities. The physical, I mean, it's obviously the social justice and all that kind of stuff. But even the Orthodox, we consider friendly here, are spending an inordinate amount of time on the physical needs rather than the spiritual realities that cause these physical needs.
Right.
Yeah, you correct the environment, and that's the whole thing. It's actually an evolutionary point of view that you could make the environment so that things will come, and then man thought be naturally good will fall in place. Well, that's not the Christian concept. Christians understand that man is depraved, and there is a natural tendency to do what is wrong. But the only remedy for that is transformation by Christ.
That's right.
Now, I was going to ask you about the culture. Culture is have not only Christian, but there's also an animist element in there as well, and then the remnants of the most Muslims. How does that all play out? What kind of scenes do you see from that?
Yeah, the animistic side. One of the things that you see in animism is a fatalism. Everything is at the whim of the spirits.
Yeah.
So if you have that, and roots still ingrained in that, even that can be like, we're poor, we're always going to be poor. There's no way out, and that fatalism is there.
Really?
And so therefore, also if they make an effort, then somebody else will ask for anything extra that they have. So that can play into it. Also, when you try to Christianize it, there's a natural tendency for people to say something like, well, God will take care of me and God will get me through, and then they misappropriate their time to not steward the resources well, and they just say, well, God's just going to help out. But we know that that's tempting God and putting ourselves at greater risk. And Jesus addressed that to Satan. He says, I can't throw myself down from the Temple Mount. I have to. He quoted the Bible verses as, "Don't tempt the Lord your God." And so when we do take these unnecessary risks that that are bad risks instead of the good risks of investment and trying to build some economically stimulate the or entrepreneurial endeavors. When we start to take those kinds of risks with the good risks, and we start making short run and long run plans and being disciplined about keeping track of our how much we're making per hour instead of just doing subsistence farming. These are the kind of things that I'm turning around there and
So you had some success?
Yeah.
Success. It sounds like, some things I've read, it sounds like some pretty good success there, you know?
Now, we only have a little bit of time. What would you say the one thing that people can do to help South Sudan? What would be the major thing that people would be able to concentrate on to be a blessing to some people in South Sudan?
Well, I really think that people should contact an organization or a missionary that's working in the area of community transformation or community health evangelism, where they understand that asset-based development and they understand how to steer clear of dependency and entitlement. And people here have skills, and even I believe it's possible that we can set up even training remotely or mentoring opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't go, you can give, or you can give of your time. And so we're trying to set up these systems whereby almost every skill is needed there.
So do we have like an address or a phone if they want to get a hold of you specifically, or you and Teresa, or I mean,
Yeah, I think we'll put that up on the screen.
Put that up.
Yeah, Dan and Teresa, Janzen, danandteresa.org is our, we've changed it because of security issues, danandteresa.org.
Okay.
And that'll get to you to do if people want to, let's say, volunteer the time, or give donations, or actually maybe come over there, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's amazing.
So in South Sudan, you get attacked by killer bees, you get snakes, you get wild animals, crocodiles.
Good time.
Sounds
time.
like you
I
have
saw a
quite
picture
an
of the snakes
adventure.
on your sidewalk and your high, and whoa! What did you say? What was it, a green or a black mamba or something one time? Was that what it was, or some kind of a poison snake?
There was a pit viper, big, huge one that was right next to the freezer when I was walking in the door.
Yeah.
And so his head was like that big.
Yeah, are they aggressive?
They are very bad if you get, a lot of people die from them.
Okay.
And Dan and Teresa, that's Teresa without the H.
Oh yeah, DERESA, right, okay.
Okay. Well, we hope you try to understand the problems that we have in different countries, and I hope you enjoyed our time on Revolution Against Evolution. We will see you next time. Thank you for being with us, Dan.
It's been a pleasure.